Rob, you want to give the opening today? You ever done it on a Tuesday?
I do it every Tuesday that you're not with us, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never
Somehow we
watched you
find
do it.
our way.
I've only heard it. Yeah, I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you get along. I'm like a cat who covers his eyes up and then thinks no one can see him. That's how cats hide.
Yeah.
They do this.
Hey, everybody. It's Tuesday. That means it's Politics Day on the Common Good podcast. I'm Robb Ryerse alongside Doug Pagitt in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Dan Deitrich in South Bend, Indiana. Hope you're all doing well. We got a lot to talk about today, but before we jump into like all the news of the day and the political implications and all of the craziness that continues to be Trump world, you guys watching Severance?
No, I've heard good things, but
yeah, I'm an episode and a half in.
This is the best show I have seen in a long time.
Really?
For those that maybe don't know, Severance is a show on Apple TV. So you have to have an Apple TV subscription, or you have to have a friend with an Apple TV subscription,
or ready to binge and get your freebie subscription and just watch one show. Watch it for a week.
Yep, exactly. And Severance is it's a TV show. It's a sci-fi futuristic kind of thing. But it's not like I'm not a sci-fi guy, but it is about a workplace, an office, a set of characters who work together, who have a procedure done that separates their memory so that what happens at work cannot be remembered at home, and what happens at home cannot be remembered at work. And essentially creating two people sharing a life, one trapped in a workspace and the other living out in the world. And it is a fascinating TV show. I read somebody on Twitter, which I don't. Are we still using Twitter?
I don't.
We'll get there.
Who are you? What kind of monster are you?
I know. At Robb Ryerse on Twitter. So I read somebody on Twitter said that this show was as if Stanley Kubrick directed the movie Office Space.
Oh, wow.
And which I thought was a really clever description. And I got to tell you, it starts a little slow as you get to know people, and then there are reveals along the way and things that you learn, and it is fantastic. And I know one of the shows that we all love is what's the name of that show?
Patriot.
Patriot. There we go.
Yeah.
Patriot. You knew.
Well,
that's the show we all love.
A guy walks by on a platform on a skyway thing, and I'm like, "Is that the guy from Patriot? Is it? I haven't gotten there yet."
Oh
yes,
man,
it is. Yep.
Seriously,
and he has
the guy that they pushed in front of the bus in that other show. He's the guy that just walks by and and the fella says hi to him.
Oh, I don't know about that. I thought you were talking about the brother-in-law.
Okay. Episode 2, there's a scene where remember in Patriot where the guy who gets pushed in front of the bus?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That guy, I think that actor just walks by and I'm like, that's the guy from Patriot. I think, I'm like, is this so maybe they're just really winking at that show. Maybe they're all in.
But there's a scene later in the book or later in the show where the brother-in-law who was the brother in Patriot, Rickett, I think is his name in Severance. Right. He writes a book, and there's a spot where someone's reading the book, and he's kind of reading what the person is reading, so you get like the voiceover. And there are some lines that he says that I laughed out loud, and my first thought was, oh, when Doug watches this, he's going to text that very line to me.
And now I'm trapped in a postmodern circle.
Yeah. So So I don't know. Be curious what, folks out there that are watching or listening, what are you, any great shows that you're watching right now? Severance is one that I just think is fantastic. And the ending, oh, so good.
Well, and I'll tell you, it has popped on the scene. Like the show came out just weeks ago, I think, right? I mean, fairly recently. And the number of disparate places where I've heard about the show or people saying it or random podcasts that I'm listening to, and someone's like, are you watching Severance? So it has that magic of whatever it is that's just, it's almost like someone drilled into the brain of the consciousness of culture and inserted a little capsule in there. If you watch Severance, you'll get that reference. But it's almost like it just somehow, some things just make it and get in there and people talk about it spontaneously. I'm watching this show. As long as we're going to do television reviews. Watching a show on HBO Max called Winning Time, which is about the Lakers.
Oh, fantastic.
It seems like everyone I know loves it except the people who were on the Lakers in the early 1980s.
Oh, seriously.
They seem to not care for it.
Have you read the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar response to Winning Time on his Medium page? It was spectacular.
Yes,
particularly
wasn't happy about it.
And I disagree with him. I think his critique of the show, he's a little too close to have his critique be honest. But it's great. I was sitting in a restaurant talking. This was last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. We all had to talk loud because it's a noisy restaurant, and we're post-COVID now, so you just yell again. And I was talking to people across the table from me, and I was saying, "Are you guys watching Winning Time?" And I hear the person behind me, facing me, talking to the man sitting facing away from me behind me, say to his friend, "Are you watching Winning Time?" Like almost in an echo. Yeah. So I turn around, then he and I go on talking about it because the people
now Winning Time is real
magic. It's just up in the air. People are talking about it.
It is. Yeah, it's real interesting because it is stylistically different from most TV shows. Just the way it's made, the cinematography, the occasional use of animation or
breaking the fourth wall, turning and talking to the camera. Yeah.
The whole combination of it is really really unusual. And boy, I wasn't sure I was going to like it the first episode in, but man, I really enjoy it.
So good. Are you watching the after conversation that they have?
No.
There's a 3-minute after conversation where one of the people who was on the Lakers in the 90s hosts this conversation with the actors and with the writer. So it gives you just a little bit of insight, just a touch. Well, it's not a bad thing to talk about television shows that are in the public's headspace while we talk about politics in the current environment, because without television shows, and certainly reality television shows, and the scourge of television that reality TV is, we would not have the situation that we find ourselves in society. Now that's probably maybe a bit too close. Maybe whatever cultural moment we're in, sort of this bad version of a postmodern world, has produced both reality television, other kinds of quality television as well, and also the political context that gave us a reality TV star, fake character. And then all the people who've just continued to play politics like you're watching fill in the blank television show. Especially reality TV shows, whether they're the game show varieties or the human drama ones.
It really does seem to be a game for a lot of these people. And speaking of the twice impeached failed president, he just won't stay out of the news, won't stay out of our brains. He was held in contempt by New York's Attorney General. No surprise, he just didn't comply with anything.
Yeah. So he's under an investigation by Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, and looking into a wide variety of things, including business dealings and the way the Trump Foundation was organized and operated, and some of Michael Cohen's allegations against the president, and this comes as big news because it seems like the former president had gotten, had won a bit of a political victory where he had not. There had been decisions not to move forward with indictment and certain, and I can't remember. I think that was in the Southern District of New York, the federal attorney there, the U.S. attorney there. the guy from Billions, to keep on with our TV show
they're actually real
theme.
people sometimes. Those TV shows
Yeah,
based on real
so
characters.
Life imitating art.
yeah, so there were resignations from that office because there were decisions not to move forward with indicting the former president. And this is interesting because it kind of brings back to the forefront, the reminder that the former president, remains in legal jeopardy. Now, I know, Doug, your position is that we're not going to, Donald Trump's not going to end up in jail. It wouldn't be good for the country. It's just not what we do. But it is interesting to see that there is some recourse for their failure to comply with the subpoena. So there's documents that they refuse to turn over that they're now fining the Trumps $10,000 a day. Now, listen, Donald Trump has gotten away with not paying his debts so often, from construction to, construction workers to contract. I mean, lawyers over and over and over and over. Come on. When was the last time Rudy Giuliani cashed a check from Donald Trump? It just hasn't. The guy does not pay his bills. Yeah,
Trisha in the chat says he's going to get away with it. He said he doesn't have the documents, and I don't see how they can prove that he does. He just seems to not comply, just go about his business. And
I don't think,
but there are some things you can get away with not paying, and then there are court-ordered fines that they just take the money. Like if you don't, it's unlike other lawsuits. If you don't pay an IRS fine or a state tax fine or something like this, they have the legal authority to seize your assets. They will seize his assets on this. And
see what you did there.
Probably the best outcome we're ever going to see on any of this stuff is that Trump is somehow financially penalized across the board and is limited from doing certain things. Yeah. So those rights, his rights will be taken from him. When the government fines you and you voluntarily pay money, or they come and seize it from you, that's your rights being taken from you, right? That's the power the government has to limit your rights, the right of possessions and specific possessions. They can take those. So while he probably will not end up in jail for any of the things that he's done, because again, I just think we don't have the wherewithal or the structure in our country to do this to a former president, his rights are going to be limited. I think he's even, might not even be able to hold public office again if certain things happen in Congress. So there's just certain things, and that's just as far as we're going to go. We live in a world where not everyone is treated the same way. And once someone becomes the elected president of the United States, the free and fair elected president of the United States, there's just a certain set of realities that come with that. And that includes him not ever having a placard with a convict number in front of his face held up under his chin.
Yep. Now, Trump and his team, not the only folks in the MAGA universe that have been in court this week. Did you watch any of the Marjorie Taylor Green trial at all? So Marjorie Taylor Green there's been a lawsuit that's been brought that says that she's not eligible to run for re-election as a congresswoman from Georgia 14, because she is a traitor to the country. Because of her involvement,
the kind that they should be filing. It's tremendous.
because of her involvement in the January 6th insurrection, she has violated her oath of office, violated the Constitution, and is ineligible to serve in the House of Representatives. That is what the lawsuit is alleging, and she took the stand last week and testified under oath and said she didn't remember lots and lots and lots
lots
and
of
lots
things
of times
Pretty terrible memory.
Yeah, I mean that like it's a bit concerning. Like we need to like get Marjorie Taylor Green some Prevagen or something like to help out with this
Increase her fish oil.
yeah. So I mean, what was amusing over and over, and I actually got sucked into this, and I was on Twitter. Is that still a thing we do? I was on Twitter, and there was a headline. I was checking what was trending, and there it was, and I clicked on it, and it was showing it live, and I ended up watching more of this than I.
How did she comport herself? Did she comport herself well? Was she
no.
Serious character to be representing the good people of North Carolina? No. South Carolina, Georgia.
Yeah. So she was combative, dismissive. Clearly, anybody who has parented a child, like maybe anybody who's parented a teenager knows, and I mean, anybody who's been a teenager, if you think back on it honestly, that there are those times of like, it's a stalemate. There's contempt. There's, I'm answering you. I'm doing what you ask. I'm putting up with this, but like my heart's not in it. And, I'm not so secretly reviling you on the inside. All of those kind of vibes were coming out. And yeah, I mean, there were two really strange things that also happened during this trial. One was Congressman Matt Gaetz was there.
Really? Little cameo, a little pop in?
Sitting in the first row, apparently wearing a bulletproof vest.
Oh. Is he going to the border? What's he doing? He's traveling down there where he needs to have that little protection on him and feel like, boy, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. The other thing is that the court reporter, and when I think court reporter, I think that little
special typewriter,
special typewriter thing. Apparently, the court reporters now, some court reporters now talk into a what looks like a vacuum hose stuck on their face, and this just seems so strange to me. I understand I'm listening and I'm typing what I'm hearing. I don't quite get the I'm listening and I'm speaking again what I'm hearing. Why not just record it in the first place? It's it was a very strange thing that I posted on Twitter and Facebook, and lots of people made fun of me for not knowing
the modern way that transcriptions happen.
That's the best thing we can come up with.
That's how it works.
So, but Marjorie Taylor Green repeatedly caught in lies. Things like, "Hey, Marjorie, did you say this about Nancy Pelosi? I don't remember." Well, here, let's watch the tape.
Yeah.
And because so much of what she has said and done, is out there on Twitter, and even claiming that she doesn't have a Twitter account anymore, and then she posted on Twitter the next day. Like it's just. Nothing's going to come of this lawsuit.
Is it a legitimate lawsuit? Is there anything that's going to come from this, or is this just going to be another one of the made for Twitter dramas that these people all run around in, and nothing ever, like, it just falls apart and goes away? Do you think that's it, or do you think there's really something in this one?
I don't think. Do either of you ever in your lives remember a congressperson having to defend their right to run again because of a constitutional challenge?
I wonder. I mean, there must be some level of case law that they look at to even make a lawsuit. Like, to get to the point that this lawsuit is before a judge and she's been summoned and put under oath and choosing to respond in a legal environment, says there's something here. There's something more than just. I mean, look. Most anybody can file a lawsuit against someone for things. Whether a court takes that up, if it's something beyond conciliation court, that's another level. And the fact that she's in front of these people,
Yeah,
that in and of itself is a thing. And look, this is precursor for Trump, don't you think?
I do.
If they can
do.
get her, if they can have a ruling that makes her behavior and her words disqualifying her from being able to run for federal office, the implications are not just that Marjorie Taylor Green goes on and gets a TV show on OAN. The implications are that Donald Trump will also be pursued in very similar fashion. If that's not already happening, and that very well could already be happening, at the House level.
Yeah, and I don't think anything is going to come from this. I don't think she's going to be ruled ineligible to run again. But just to your point,
do you think
Doug,
that, Rob? Do you think that because you don't think we should, that there are not things people can do that should make them ineligible to run?
Oh no, I totally think she
just can't get her on this.
I totally think she's guilty, and think that she and Matt Gaetz and Paul Gosar and a whole bunch of other folks, Madison Cawthorn, have violated these very laws, these very elements of the Constitution that are in place to protect our country from, those who would undermine elections and the peaceful transfer of power. All of this comes as a result of the Civil War, and kind of figuring out like how we're going to go forward after that. And there's this basic sense that, hey, if you're going to serve in Congress, you're going to, support the country.
Yeah. Bare minimum. Don't try to overthrow the government.
And I guess I don't know my history well enough. How were senators and Congress people who were supportive of the Lost Cause Civil War effort from the Rebel South, how were they allowed to continue to run for election at the federal level? And then ultimately some of those people became president and so on. Do you know, like, was that not determined as a act of treason? Like, did we not consider legally was the South's trying to leave the Union and fighting a war over it not considered a treasonous act? Is that what we've?
Well, it was. I mean, there were a number of folks that were expelled from Congress as a result of their support of the Confederacy. I think there was. And again, I am not a Civil War historian, so someone can follow, who's following along could correct me on this. My guess is that there was a attitude of reconciliation after the fact, and a desire to provide some amnesty, to provide some cover for the good of the country. It was being the winners being bigger people, and welcoming those back in. So, but
that worked
out
really well for everyone.
Glad we got that monkey off our back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just time to move on.
Let's just give these guys a pass, a do-over. Yeah. They'll probably change their ways.
It's time to move forward. Well, Barbara Michael says that we should follow Heather Cox Richardson, who, if you don't already follow Heather Cox Richardson, she puts out a like weekly or maybe more times than that email newsletter. And she's a great historian about these things. And actually, Barbara, that's what had me thinking, like, I feel like I read something from her about that. And she's somebody really worth following. So, let our little dazzling conversation here of, interest wrapped in ignorance lead you to somebody who might actually know all this stuff. Because it's a little shocking that we don't know, right? Like, the things we know about who can run, like where can you live and how much money can you raise and who can give you more than $2,900 and all of that, people know. But hey, if you say that you don't want to certify the election and you want people to storm the Capitol in order to stop it from happening, does that prevent you from being a president again or a congressperson? That doesn't seem settled in the American psyche.
Yeah,
that's its own. Yeah. That's its own.
Yeah. Problem. Listen, let me ask you this. How would you feel if all of your text messages were published for everybody to read? Does that scare you a little bit? I mean, I'm in group text circles with both of you, and
Like, thinking through what dirt does Rob
Well,
have on me? You're like,
let's try it. I think what would happen is that people would ultimately conclude that guy thinks he's funny and he's really not, and that would be crushing. And I couldn't survive it.
I couldn't survive.
yeah,
I don't think I have. I don't know. I've wondered about that kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
because you just think, well, everybody has things that if someone got a hold of your phone, there's not a naked picture on my phone. There's not a DP or anything. None of this stuff. Like these people that are like, everyone does it. Well, it's everyone less one, maybe two. I don't know. I just, there might be an embarrassing moment where like, you shoot a text like, my gosh, this meeting couldn't be any more boring, but I don't know. I'm just just not riddled.
That's what me and Rob text each other during our Vote Common Good meetings. Yeah.
Or during this. So yeah, I don't think I would be professional. I don't think I would be professionally worried if someone looked at my phone overall. I don't know. And I'm not trying to say, that I'm the highest level of moral accomplishment, but come on, it doesn't, people, wherever that spectrum is, from Anthony Weiner to, whatever was on Hillary Clinton's email server, to like, I don't know. How do you feel about having yours looked at? Would that be disconcerting?
I think anytime, that there's kind of an invasion of privacy, that's disconcerting. I think I'm with you, Doug. I think I would probably have some awkward, situations with some individuals that maybe I had, said something unkind about or sarcastic about, but but I don't think there'd be anything, professionally damning or the type of thing that would get
like
me,
mildly cringy.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, it would be totally cringy, but like not, I don't know, planning the overthrow of the government.
Right.
How do you think Mark Meadows is feeling today? So this is the week Mark Meadows has had, because Mark Meadows, former congressman from North Carolina, who also became Trump's chief of staff and a key figure in the the insurrection and its planning. Was it last week that Mark Meadows' voter registration was pulled because he voted
registered
illegally?
Yeah, he was registered to vote in like 7 different places or something.
Yeah. So,
well, this is how these guys know that there's funny business going on, because they
voter fraud. Yeah.
They're like, I commit voter fraud all the time. Of course there's voter fraud.
Everybody does it.
You there's voter fraud going on.
Listen, Mark Meadows, everybody is registered 100 places and everybody has things to hide in their text messages. So in addition to losing his ability to vote, Mark Meadows has also lost his privacy and his text, thousands and thousands of text messages released in a new book showing Congress people, administration members, family members, Fox News hosts, all
spouses
texting Mark
of
Meadows
Supreme
desperately.
Court justices.
Yep. Now, some of that is the fact that, we do what we do, and Mark Meadows was the chief of staff. I guess if I were ever a chief of staff to a president of the United States, I probably wouldn't want my text messages rolling around. All this might have something to do with what I've had on my to-do list.
What level of
So one of the things that tying this into the Marjorie Taylor Green question and conversation, one of the things she was asked about was if she had ever encouraged the president to enact martial law. And she said under oath that she did not. However, she texted Mark Meadows, chief of staff to the president, which is, for anybody who watches The West Wing, the chief of staff is the second most powerful person, in the world, more so than the vice president and, all of that. She texts Mark Meadows encouraging the president to enact martial law. Two things about this. Well, three things. One, she lied under oath. Two, she spelled Marshall wrong. She spelled it Marshall, which is the last name of my best friend, and I find kind of hilarious. Not the way it's spelled when you're invoking martial law. The third thing is the date. She didn't send this on January 5th. She did not want the president to invoke martial law on January 5th, on January 6th. This was January 17th, 3 days before the inauguration.
What was that about?
And after an insurrection attempt.
Oh,
Yes.
She was saying before you leave office, invoke martial law and say you're not leaving office. She was trying to get him to stay in office, is what you mean?
Yes.
It wasn't around violence happening in some of our cities, or it wasn't around seizing voting machines so that there could be a count made of them. You're saying after all of that had been adjudicated, days before he's going to leave, she's like, hey, one last chance. Do you think he could invoke martial law? Because I could call Marshall and he could come over and say this is now the law and just stay president of the United States. Yeah. What's confusing about her, I think Trisha put in the chat here that she was also going around saying to people, you should enter the Capitol building because it's yours.
Yes.
She comes from that group of Republicans that act as if, all the property of the federal government belongs to every citizen and no one should tell you what to do with it. You should just be able to go into Nancy Pelosi's office and sit down. Yet on the other hand, she's saying to the president, you should take over and put federal law in place across the United States to usurp people's freedoms. This is what's confusing, right, about folks like this, is that you don't know if they're on the libertarian, free, get the heel of the government off my back, or, hey, before you leave office, why don't you just take over and stay in office crowd? And
Well,
it's not a spectrum that people are on. It's this weird bouncing around between different views, which makes it very hard to level any critique against folks like this other than to just say, I don't think they're serious people about all of this. I would imagine Mark Meadows is saying to himself, I can't deal with text messages now, 3 days before this administration ends from this congressperson trying to tell me, that we should invoke martial law for the fourth time in the United States history.
And the My Pillow guy doing the same thing. Did you read those?
Yeah.
How the My Pillow guy got so deep in this will never not be funny.
He's a local guy done good from Minnesota too. That's what's really heartbreaking. Yeah. For a long time, we were all like, hey, that pillow, really great. Sure, you're picking it up at the mall at a kiosk, but really it's made right up the road. The thing, I slept on a My Pillow for years. It was a heck of a pillow.
It's one heck of a pillow.
Among the fact that this guy wants to oversee, the ruin of democracy, it also really ruined a really great pillow for an awful lot of people, and that's that's its own tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Marjorie Taylor Green texting about martial law. We've got Rick Perry, former governor of Texas, former energy secretary. What was that?
Yeah, what did he want to get rid of? What were the agencies he wanted to get rid of?
The one he couldn't remember was the energy department that he became the director of.
Didn't even remember it existed.
That was no accident either. They're like, hey, put that guy in charge of the one.
But the fun thing about Rick Perry was he's like, no, I didn't text him.
He did not. Yes.
And then they're like, well, you signed your name and left your phone number as Rick Perry. Turns out you did.
Do you know what
another phone number not registered to him? He borrowed someone's phone.
Well, this is what I'm going to say. You know what you do when you sign a text and put a phone number? That means you're using a burner phone, right? So the person knows who you are.
I didn't know that, but now I do.
Wouldn't that be the case? But if you're using a burner phone, why would you sign your name? I don't know. Is this an old
use your
person
code
thing?
name.
Totally. My pillow guy. Here's what I
Spycraft
think is
101.
happening, and this is what makes all this so confusing. Almost every government official, especially federal government official, is required by law to keep track of all communications that they participate in their duties. And because now we have cell phones, all of those people carry multiple phones. So it might be that someone he's messaging from his government phone knows who that is, but he's got this other private phone, or sometimes even two other private phones, one that he might use for sort of other businessy stuff, and then one for family. People do this stuff all the time, not just scheming, scamming insurrectionists, but that's what's got them now into all this trouble, because now what the government's saying is, we need to see that official government phone because it's actually our property, and every word you've typed on there is open for open records requests, and we will see all of those. You don't even have to see, I mean, unless you're claiming some executive privilege, we just get it. Those other phones, those are the ones that people are always running a little funny business with and swapping them out and not keeping them long or using someone else's, or now it becomes an aid. And they're doing this stuff all the time because there's so much communication that goes on, both in text messages and in these other apps and so on, that, and I don't think it's just Republicans that are doing this. I think many officials and people working, sometimes and for very good reasons, they're trying to keep track of things. They want to have one conversation be under government purview and they want another one not to be. And I know a lot of government officials that have even said in all these days, they'll say, look, here's what we've had to do. A conversation that I'm having on a personal level with someone that I work with changes to a work conversation. I have to say, let's stop here and switch over to the other phones, right? That's a lot of work. Most people don't do that though. They just keep going, or they take the phone call and then it shows up on a call record and they're supposed to report it and they don't want to. This is going to open up because the January 6th committee is gaining access to all this, and they've already got the phone companies giving them access. The stuff they are seeing is just, there is a wealth of information that you're going to end up with a whole lot of new precedent built out of all this. That's going to be super interesting going forward.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming to light.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing, we'll talk about Kevin McCarthy here in a second, but there's reports that Mitch McConnell was elated that and relieved by what was happening on January 6th because it meant he thought it meant the end of Trump, and he was finally going to be rid of him. I mean, just the hypocrisy of these folks and their willingness to set values aside for the opportunity to stay in power is just remarkable. And Kevin McCarthy is a big part of that. The accusation has been made that he encouraged the former president, to resign as a result of, what happened on January 6th and the former president's encouragement and provocation of it. Kevin McCarthy came out with a very strong denial saying, no. It was, the New York Times is making this up because, liberals are trying to get me and, blah, 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 all the same stuff. And then a recording comes out, a recording of a conversation that he had with Liz Cheney. Now, this is weird to me. Who records this? Liz Cheney has said that she did not record it. Where
it wasn't
did this?
Just her. It was the whole leadership. It was the leadership. Yeah, it was the leadership team.
Okay, so somebody records this and leaks it to the New York Times. Is that another congressperson? Is that a staffer? This is dirty. So leaks it to the New York Times, where McCarthy is talking to Liz Cheney, saying, and in this leadership call with Republican leadership of the House, saying, I'm gonna talk to him about resigning, and I think that's what he ought to do. I'm gonna talk to him about it. Now, McCarthy's word salad and verbal gymnastics, I should say, that he's doing is basically saying, I didn't talk to the president about resigning. He told Liz Cheney he was going to. belying the fact that that's probably what he genuinely believes and thought would have been the best thing, but he didn't have the guts to actually do it.
Yeah,
That's
for
what I
sure.
think.
I mean, yeah, and the problem facing all of this is that you see one version of McCarthy in the days just after the insurrection, and then things change. And when you listen closely to what he said in the call, he said, "Look, here's what I think is going to happen. I think the House is going to pass an impeachment, and I think it's quite possible that the Senate is going to confirm that. And if they do, it's better for the president to resign than to be removed from office. So I'm going to tell him that. I'm going to talk to him about that." Now, what happened? And look, I am no McCarthy defender, but what happened between that call and when McCarthy ever talked again to the president is he began to realize the Senate is not going to remove him from office. So the set of conditions had changed. He can't come right out and say that. Say like, "Hey, look, yeah, if the guy was facing impeachment, I would have given him the advice to resign because it's just keeping your honor in some way that you're not being dragged out of office." And I think that he should have, because he basically what he intimates in this call is, I think that's what should happen. Right?
Yeah.
He's not bemoaning it. He's like, these are the natural consequences. This is how I think it's going to go.
He is envisioning himself in the Barry Goldwater role of making that walk from the Capitol to the White House to sit down and like Barry Goldwater did with Nixon and say, "Hey, we don't have the votes. You're going to lose this thing.
You're going to lose."
And so, it's better to resign. McCarthy's positioning himself in that role.
So in his mind, he's not lying because he's saying, but he can't come right out and say this, because to say it, then someone would ask, so then you did believe that it would have been the right thing for the Senate to have done, right? Because he can hear himself supporting the idea that the Senate should have done something that, as it turns out, the Senate didn't do.
Yeah.
But what's funny about it is he even knew that the Senate wouldn't have impeachment hearings until after Trump was out of office, right? So everything for McCarthy was simply calculating what's going to make things look best for Donald Trump. But when you really listen to what he was doing, it wasn't what's best for the country. It wasn't what's best for his party even. It's what's best for Trump. If Trump's going to end up being convicted by the Senate, even though he's out of office, well, let's do what we can to protect him from that. So in that conversation about January 6th and the response from the Republican leadership, McCarthy's response is, what's best for Trump?
Yep.
It's just this guy's inability to do anything but put his own future political success in view is just nutty, because the only reason he wants Trump to be safe and saved and be on his side is because he wants all the money. And again, the thing people have to remember is the RNC agreed with the Trump campaign to merge mailing lists in 2016. Reince Priebus did this. And when they did, Trump Incorporated took over the email list and the fundraisers in perpetuity from the RNC. So the reason Trump has all this money is because he has access to the donors, and he has access to the donor records and to all the emails, and it continues to work that way. So the reason McCarthy is freaked out is he knows that if he moves against Trump, and this is true of any Republican, if Donald Trump decides you're not my person, I don't want you, they cut them off, not from Donald Trump's endorsement on some Discord channel or on some new social media or on Elon Musk's little internet project. It's that they don't get access to the contact list of the RNC. So this is fundamentally what all of this is about, top to bottom. It's not about Trump's policies. It's not about make America great again. It's about you literally can't function in the Republican Party without access to that database, and it's owned and operated by the Trump Incorporated.
Yep. And I think, I think there's one other element in play here with McCarthy, and it is the bizarro world kind of situation. But there are more than just rumors. I mean, there is conversation about who the next Speaker of the House is going to be.
Yeah.
And, folks, Kevin McCarthy is poised with, the sense that Republicans are going to retake the House in November. He's going to be the next Speaker of the House. Folks, just to, remember, you don't have to be a House member to be Speaker of the House.
You think Donald
And
Trump will become the Speaker of the House and is going to call impeachment on Joe
I
Biden?
think that Kevin McCarthy does not want to give Donald Trump any personal vindictive reason to want to take him out. And I think that so Kevin McCarthy right now is really, really groveling because his chance at becoming Speaker, might be undone by this secret recording if Trump reacts badly. Like, that's McCarthy's calculation. If Trump reacts badly to this, he thinks I'm talking behind his back. He thinks I'm trying to undermine him. We know that Trump is completely unstable with these kinds of things and the conspiracy theories, and he latches on to something. I mean, you just think about how The Apprentice played out, that TV, if you ever watched it, it tags into something and that's it. And McCarthy is picturing himself, sitting at the table and Trump saying, "Hey, Kevin, I understand all this stuff that you did for me, but you did have that conversation. Too bad for you that the tape came out. You're fired." And, he's done. And he's seeing that scenario is playing in his head, and he's trying to figure out, how do I hold on to my speakership and, keep Trump from coming and taking it from me?
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed that one. And look, Trump's already said he doesn't hold any of this against McCarthy. Yeah. He's already said deck is cleared. In fact, over the weekend, the former failed steak salesman and Thai pitcher was and college president. I was going to add that one. Yeah. Was in Ohio, and when he was introducing J.D. Vance, the author and television and movie scriptwriter, he said about J.D. Vance, "This guy said some really bad shit about me, and but I don't hold it against him because who would I endorse? Everyone said things, and then Trump said this, but then they all came home." Weirdly, Trump's favorite thing is for someone to be against him and then to come back to him, because then he's like, "I broke
groveling."
Your knee.
Yep.
Now I've got, if you always liked me, well, that's on you. If you didn't like me and I broke you, that's on me.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on in his head. So in some weird way, McCarthy's in better shape, because even if he moved against him and then came back and said, "But I've really reconsidered, and if I could, please have your forgiveness and your blessing going forward," then he's going to get it. And that's what's going on. It's just so bizarre.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with that. Did you see the clip of the Pennsylvania Senate Republican debate that took place last night?
No,
maybe you might have. I think I saw it on Twitter. Is that still a thing we're doing?
No,
is anybody even on that anymore?
It doesn't exist.
Who uses it? Why would you use a privately owned little website?
Yeah.
So is it more like a clip now? Is it like the Elon Musk blog? Is that kind of what it is? And
yeah,
I don't even know what it is.
I saw this clip. It was all of the Senate, the Republicans that are running for the United States Senate in Pennsylvania, including Dr. Oz, who is the Trump endorsed candidate. Yeah. And it was all the clips of them invoking the name of Donald Trump or the Trump administration. And it is disheartening because they are all groveling. And this sense of the Republican Party, might be able to, to use a phrase that we use with our kids, go outside and get the stink blowed off you. Stink of the of the Trump administration is not getting blown off of the Republican Party. They're actually, like a dog in the yard rolling around in it, trying to get as much of it on everywhere possible. And this clip, was, the Senate debate in Pennsylvania shows that. And, we see that with McCarthy. We see it playing out in all of these places. And it's
so gross. It's just
it really is.
Does no one have any self worth any spine. Like the grossest one for me was Ted Cruz when he came back after Donald Trump like made fun of his wife, and then Ted Cruz comes back around like
and accused Ted Cruz's father of assassinating.
Yeah, just like
yeah. Look, this guy is, and one of the things that Republicans are facing right now, and I don't think Republicans should, hold federal office for the next 10 years until they've really thought this all through again. It's clearly not going to happen.
Gone to their room and thought about what they've done.
but we do need a robust Republican Party that's healthy and good for the country. We can't keep going on with this crowd. So people have to fix this. But they're doing this funny thing where what they're trying to say is, I want Trumpism without the guy, because he was like it's the opposite of what happens with a lot of other politicians, where you're like, I don't agree with all of his policies, but I really think that person represented something. A lot of, Democrats talk about this with John Kennedy and with Barack Obama. Republicans talk about it with Ronald Reagan, and then Republicans talk about it, and then they really like Ronald Reagan. And they'll disagree with some policies here and there, but they're like, but the person embodies what I am all about. With Trump, it's the opposite. You hear it parsed out all the time in the primaries. People trying to say, I'm not with him, like, the Hillary Clinton, I'm with her, but I'm with his policies that have always represented me and us. And he's been part of our policy thing going on. And this is going to be the question. Will voters let people get away with this? Because after the primaries, and I just heard about this really great book, and a person who is articulating this very well, that the use of the party primary system is the problem in modern day politics. Take out money, take out just all the other issues. And the problem is that we're using a party system that rewards a teeny group of people all the power to select who our representatives are going to be. And so there's people proposing some changes to it. And I didn't know the history of how we got to primaries. Very intriguing, right? About how some people say, well, we got there because we didn't want the party bosses picking and we wanted to let the individuals pick. That wasn't it at all. It was just the opposite of that. People were like, I'm gonna find a way to ramrod this system, and I'm going to use the primaries to do it. So there's some real issues that the Republicans especially have to face. Democrats, of course, do as well. But this is what's facing our political construct at the moment. And where we turn to for authority is a huge question. And, for a lot of times people turn to a website called twitter.com. And that was their, that was the salvation for understanding a primary news gathering service. Look, I've been on Twitter since, I don't know, really early. I got a thing the other day about how long I've been on, and I don't know, like early. Because it's like one of the social media options that was plucking around out there, and you're like, hey, we should probably try this thing. I wonder what this is all about, and is this something interesting, and so on. What it has become is a subset of American culture that's propped up primarily, my editorial here, by culture creators and culture observers, media personalities, including the press, and then a bunch of Russian bots. And if you're not in one of those categories, you're trying to influence culture or keep up on cultural happenings, reporting on the news, or trying to get people to buy cryptocurrency through a bot. If you took all of that away, what you would end up with on Twitter are, 7 million business people that have an account that they haven't tweeted on in 4 years.
So LinkedIn, basically. Yeah. So,
what do we do about this? Because now Elon Musk is going to own it and do what he wants with it. And it should then be, now we know how Twitter ends, right? The answer to the question, what's the meaning of Elon Musk buying Twitter is, well, now we know the ending of Twitter, that this should be the end of it. But I don't think media and culture creators, and certainly press have an alternative to allow them to keep doing their lazy journalism that they use when they use Twitter to do their reporting. It just that any editor lets somebody, and my Apple News feed is full of these stories where the news story is someone's tweet or what 5 people said in response to some cultural happening, that's a news story. So look, I'm not trying to blame the media for this. I'm just saying journalists need to find other outlets for gaining access than Twitter, because it is over with now that Elon Musk owns it, because Elon Musk has a single goal: to commodify and make sellable everything. That's what this is all about. That's why he's a cryptocurrency guy. That's why he wants to own Twitter. He believes that all of this can be used for people to start to make a digital wallet and then start to fill your digital wallet and spend from your digital wallet across the internet, so that the internet primarily and functionally becomes the financialification of everything. And that it creates a new economy that can work outside of the other reward systems. And it's, as this article says, his solution, he's masquerading a solution that's really just a big problem. I'm really ramped up on this whole cryptocurrency, NFTs, and Twitter thing, because they are 3 strands of the same cord. And it's like an awakening happened to me over the weekend watching a particular YouTube video, listening to a podcast. So I'm one of those guys. I'm an expert on this because I listened to a 1-hour podcast and a 2-hour YouTube video.
Yeah. Listen, and I mean, just to circle back to what we've talked about, I'm in group text with you, Doug. I know that. I know. So listen, I want to look at this thing from a little bit different angle. 150 years ago, whatever it is, 100 years ago, we've got this sense that, American expansion, and in a lot of ways, kind of the Industrial Revolution was built on, was built through the labor of people working for a handful of tycoons, oligarchs, who were able to make a lot of money through the creation of the infrastructure that powered the American economy and its growth. As the new economy was coming into place, the Industrial Revolution was happening. There were oil tycoons, there were railroad tycoons, there were these individuals who were able to capitalize on that, whether it was steel or coal or whatever. They made loads and loads and loads and loads of money by being there and owning and operating the infrastructure creation of the new economy.
Mm-hmm.
I think, something very similar is happening now, that what we've got is a set of tech oligarchs, tech tycoons, who are owning the infrastructure of the new economy and getting, richer than anyone has ever been. As a result of that. And whether it's Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or, Bill Gates, Jack Dorsey, on and on and on we can go. I think there's some real similarities. Now, what these folks come with is a very strong libertarian streak of don't regulate us. Let us take care of this. We can handle this. Let the market it's a very laissez-faire libertarian approach. And, Elon Musk is even bringing, posturing that with saying, I'm going to make, Twitter, free speech again. He's posturing that. What ended up happening as a result of these tycoons owning everything is it led to, a progressive approach to things where, regulation was in place, monopolies were broken up. thinking about, Teddy Roosevelt. There were needed regulations that happened. There was concern for the environment. There was the opportunity to, put labor protections in place, unions. All of these things came in response to a handful of oligarchs owning the infrastructure of our economic growth. And I think, hopefully, if history is repeating itself, like the silver lining on all of this is, will there be some response that breaks this stuff up for the good of all people? I mean, Google has an 85% market share. 85% market share. We have never in our nation's history allowed a company to have an 85% market share. That is beyond a monopoly. And yet they do. And so I think if history is repeating itself, I think what we're going to see is that, just like, oil, railroad, steel, AT&T, telephone, all of that stuff had to be broken up, and it had to be redistributed, to use a buzzword, in a different way. I think the same is going to come with tech.
Yeah, another big question.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you're onto something. I think this is the early days of regulating and figuring out what it means to have digital lives. And a big piece of this debate is the idea of freedom of speech and what that is and what that means to have freedom of speech on a privately owned platform. This article that I pulled has a great quote. It says, "Freedom for the wolves has often meant death to the sheep." This is a point often lost to Americans. Government or large centralized authority is one threat to liberty, but not the only one. When it comes to speech, what has often kept a great many of people from speaking isn't censorship, but the lack of a platform. Social media, including Twitter, came along and promised that change. But when it became a cesspit of hate and harassment for women and people of color in particular, it began to offer a miserable bargain. You can be free to say what you wish, but your life can be made unrelentingly painful if you dare so. That's kind of the crux with this free speech debate on Twitter is people were having their accounts, suspended, canceled, not because they were disagreeing with someone politically, but because they were threatening people's lives, spreading misinformation, threatening, insurrection, things like that. Like, it's not about, we need to have honest debate. Now that's happening.
Yeah, that's really well said. And look, free speech is guaranteed that the government shall pass no law to interfere with your speech.
Yeah.
Not a privately owned, whether it's owned by Elon Musk or by a dozen stockholders, that a privately owned company has to let you say whatever you want. They don't. That's not freedom of speech.
Right.
Freedom of speech is a government limitation. That's it. That is it. Nothing, nowhere else in our society should people be running around saying, I have free speech rights, unless it's saying to your government, you government can't stop me. Your boss can stop you. Your parent can stop you. Your service provider, your internet service provider can stop you. That's not the government.
Right.
So these are not.
Free speech doesn't protect you from consequences of saying dumb things.
Totally. Yes, you can say those things. And if you say, hey, I am going to kill you, you have the freedom to say that. And then you've committed a crime.
Yeah.
Right. It's against the law for you to, not against the law for you to say it, against the law for you to say that. So this is all this stuff that somehow Elon Musk is the savior of free speech because he doesn't like the way a private social media accounts are being treated on a social media platform. You couldn't be any more disconnected to free speech than that. That is such a fundamental misunderstanding. Look, if you want to run a website where you don't stop anyone from saying anything, go ahead. There are lots of websites where you can do that. You can just start a website and let people come on and comment and say anything they want. This idea that somehow Twitter is magical or Facebook is magical or Instagram. And so, yeah, I'm with you, Rob, on the idea that like, because our digital lives have become so conflated and owned by so few players, the government's probably got to get in there somewhere for sure. The better option for this is for people to make more options. Right. The response to a monopoly is to be sure that the system is not set where someone can't create competition. Let's find ways to create competition. Look, it's a little shocking that Elon Musk decides to do what? Buy Twitter rather than start a Twitter. Well, that's intriguing. Why is this super inventor? Why is this? And look, I'm all for Elon Musk. I'm glad that he's spending his money on sending rockets up. I'm glad he's working on battery technology. I'm glad he created PayPal. Good for Elon Musk. Fantastic. But the idea that somehow he's the big savior of this because he can put together enough financing to want to buy something that he's determined is already valuable. Well, if that's what we're into now is who gets to own the thing. You know what I remember? I remember the good old days of the early 2000s when people weren't saying, how do I buy this social network? But how about if I make a piece of competition to it?
Make something better. Yeah.
Make something better. And the idea that no one can afford to make something better is fundamentally not true. Elon Musk has just shown this. He's decided that Twitter's worth $44 billion. Don't you think that if you had $44 billion, you could come up with something that could be an alternative to Twitter? So why doesn't he want that? Why does he want this rather than that? It's a business proposition that's all looped into a whole other conversation we can have about the fact that the same guy is pitching cryptocurrencies is the reason he wants Twitter in particular. They're not unrelated.
I think we should move this conversation over to Twitter. I'm at Robb Ryerse.
I'm at Pagitt.
At Daniel Deitrich, and we're streaming over there right now.
We're actually streaming this on Twitter. Where some guy I think came on here and said, "Stop whining about Twitter if you don't like it." And he's like, "And you're doing this on Twitter, you hypocrites." Yeah, look, because it's a free social network. We do it on Twitch too. We'll do it everywhere. And if Elon Musk makes it uninhabitable, we'll do it over there. I actually had to write Dan the other day and say, "Hey, what's your Twitter profile?" Because I want to tag you in a thing, and I couldn't. So much I just don't care.
And the other thing I want to say is it's kind of interesting and fun that Tycoon just decided to buy this. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love the idea that people are like, Twitter is so impenetrable, and Trump was taken off of there, and they're trying to make another one. And then the guy's like, "I'll just buy that. Can I just put together me and my buddies and we'll just take it over?" I mean, talk about showing that it's just so vulnerable and so about nothing other than can the shareholders make a profit now? It's what it's always been about, top to bottom. Stop thinking this is the place where you're actually expressing yourself and finding your freedoms that are given to you by the creator or evolution and supported by our government. As it turns out, Twitter is not the public square. It's really not the public square. And to continue to, suggest that it's legitimate for Elon Musk to say, "Oh, I need to protect Twitter as a free speech space because that's the current public square." There are public squares. Like, they don't have to be metaphors. You can go and talk to people in public. It's not. It's a service that's paid for by advertisers, and it's great. And if you don't follow us on Twitter yet, please consider doing so and share our videos with other people because it's a place that people like to use their social equity. But
whether they were, I was going to say whether they're on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or any of the other places where folks might be watching this live. I just wanted to say thank you
and tell a friend.
That. Thank you for joining the conversation, Trisha and Barbara and Jim and Lee and Fenley, who wants us to stop whining and go to Gab. Not going to do that. Oh, but I do have my Truth Social account, and I'm going to try to get kicked off this week. Barbara, Jackie, Ag, Dave, Mark.
Quite a chatty over there today.
Yeah, Mark, I'm probably not going to click your link, but thanks for listening.
I'm trying
Really?
to go back.
Mark's got a link in there?
Yeah, and then don't click on that. And then there was Christian, who very early on, Mark, we think you're a Russian spammer. Don't do that.
Startup home buyers.
No, it's a piano instrumental video from the
Oh.
Gravel Institute.
Well, now you have a virus to go along with that.
No, it's
piano.
YouTube. YouTube. Nothing bad can happen on YouTube. What could possibly happen out over there?
I just want to end.
Look up a YouTube video called "The Line Goes Up." It will rabbit hole you right into you doing your own research and finding out what's really going on in the government.
Anti-crypto evangelist over here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like I don't whatever a QAnon person is about cryptocurrency. That's what I am.
I'm trying to land the plane here, guys. I'd love to end.
Try to land a plane for
with Christian Fago's comment early on in the podcast today when he said, "God, this is boring."
Hey man, this isn't your therapy session. Not a place to talk about your life.
And then Trisha says, "Hey Christian, let me suggest you shouldn't listen to something. You should listen to something else if you don't consider boring instead of making rude comments."
How boring his life must actually be if he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to type about this being boring. Wow. Has Twitter run out of all energy? Well,
hey, Christian, we love you. Thank you for listening in.
If more people launch into all this or less, and we'll find that out. All right, good people. We'll talk to you tomorrow. What day is it today? Tuesday? Tomorrow. Yes. Somebody who's been on our podcast used to be one of the co-hosts of the Wednesday conversation. Laura Truax went away to a monastery kind of thing for 35 days and was silent. She's broken her silence and tells us all about it. That happens. That happens on the podcast tomorrow. Great day. And then we'll see you again on Thursday and on Friday. And we'll probably talk about economics as is related to cryptocurrency, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that stuff later. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.